Hey,
Hi there.
here we
Hello,
are.
everyone.
Now, I'm going to reveal myself in a minute, but we're going to wait for a few more people to join us.
That still doesn't sound right, Will.
No, well, I have given you. It's a surprise. Anyone who's watching,
Okay.
it's going to be a surprise to Mikhail and Roderick as well.
That's true.
Yeah, but I
That's
promised them that I am dressed, and I haven't got a costume or any tattoos to hide. So I'll show you in a moment. But I thought it was only suited because we had a record-breaking 400 attendees have signed up for this. By the way,
Wow, well done.
not well done to you. I
Good.
mean,
yeah.
I think it's
Well done to us. Yes, that's
exactly.
true.
I think it's you two that have done that. I'm just setting a stage for you two. Where are we? I just want to look at the time. 1 minute in. And
Reveal. Reveal.
no, hold on.
All
Okay,
right.
let me just check. I'm just checking LinkedIn to see we're there. Okay. So, who would like to see what I'm wearing for you guys?
What I'm not wearing for you.
No,
This
no, no, no.
doesn't sound good, Will.
Okay, listen. I thought about this, and I've worked with you two before. That's how we know each other. We worked on projects, and all of us sort of did a work from home. And you've got, Mr. Nomad there, Roderick, traveling around the place. We're often in t-shirts, and crypto and blockchains often got that kind of hoodie, t-shirty kind of relaxed style about it. But blockchain's moved on, and I thought we've got an occasion here. We've got an occasion. We have two, legends in their own tokenomic lifetimes. So it's only suited that one is wearing and dressed accordingly.
There you go.
It's
He's
a
gone
very,
up.
very serious
There we
subject we
go.
have here.
Dressing up. All right.
Yes, and I am
Nice.
absolutely boiling.
That is the calling. That is-
I've taken these off because they're for reading glasses. The last time I wore this actually was Cardano Summit last year. So you
Did it work?
guys are privileged. Usually
Nice.
this is just for Fred and Charles, but it's for you guys
Thank
and
you.
for everyone watching as well. So where are we?
Okay, you're
Well,
reading the room, Will.
let's get it started, right?
We ready to kick off?
Shall we
Should we
The
go?
audience can help
start with
us.
the round of intro?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Those of you that are live, and thanks to those of you who are watching this on playback. We have with us today two, double the fun. We have two experts that I pulled from the not the non-experts we often have on LinkedIn, which is what this is all about, bringing you experts. Mikhail and we have Roderick. Both of them are economists, and both of them focus 100% on tokenomics. Just because I've got Mikhail here next to me, I'll let you kick off, Mikhail.
Okay, yeah. Great being here. Thank you for the invite, Will. And I'm really looking forward to this. As Will mentioned, I have a master's degree in managerial economics, background in project finance, and I've been, let's say, working with crypto projects and enterprises on token economics hands-on since 2017. And most recently, I've been a co-founder of a DAO. It's called Triple A DAO, and it's a DeFi DAO that's building zero interest lending protocol. And I'm also, let's say, a founder of Web3E.eu, where I'm offering my tokenomics expertise as a service. So for anybody who wants to navigate the treacherous waters of tokenomics and token design and allocation, they can, let's say, work with me at a very affordable monthly subscription to get somebody trustworthy on their side. So that's me.
Affordable sounds affordable and attractive too. Thank you,
Yes.
Roderick.
Hey, everyone. So, strangely, I discovered that I have the same background as Michal. Just before starting blockchain, I originally worked in project finance as well. So this is the art of financing infrastructure, which involves these deal processes that take years or to put together. And you have to build these really complicated quantitative tools to get everybody comfortable to sign off on the hundreds of millions needed to build this stuff. And so that meant that by the end of it, I was a dab hand with a spreadsheet, and I pivoted into a freelance career, working with all kinds of businesses and situations. And then somehow COVID stopped me on a tropical island, and I networked with some blockchain insiders out there, and they saw what I could do and thought I would be a good hand to help them out with some tokenomics. And that kickstarted my career in blockchain. And I really have had to discover what that role entails for me. We started off sort of like just structuring these sales, for these new tokens, and then went into deeper questions like, how do we make these tokens useful? How do we create a sustainable economy? And I found myself reaching back into my educational training. I have a background in economics, like Michal as well. And I was riveted. Suddenly, I went to university wanting to make the world a better place, and then conventional economics teaches you that we can't do anything about it, and you have to pass exams explaining why the world is messed up and we can't make it any better. And then along comes blockchain, and you have this amazing new suite of tools, and suddenly, like, a lot of these deep problems can be unpicked and solved, and it's I'm just so stimulated by that. So since the market took a bit of a tumble, I've decided to sort of step back and create my own study program in tokenomics, create thought leadership and content around best practice. I have a YouTube channel called Tokenizing. You can look it up; it should turn up. And I'm also selling a training course that teaches people how to manage a token sale and give them a sober perspective on what's really going on. So you can access that at rmckinley.net/courses. And I'm here today because I've worked with both of you, and essentially I remain excited and optimistic about where this technology is going to take us. So that's me.
Fantastic.
Great.
I've done this.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend anybody checking out Roderick's YouTube channel. I mean, seriously, this is one of the best resources. When how shall I start with token economics? This is my favorite go-to because it's on the point, it's accurate, and it's not overwhelming as well. So great stuff.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I won't talk about myself too much because it's about you two guys today and what you're doing. As you said, we did meet together, all met. I've been involved in everything from token launches through to some funding, helping projects get funded, and that often sometimes can be the case of looking at the tokenomics, of course. I mean, there's a lot of things that get involved in funding, but that's one of the things. Roderick is actually has been one of my advisors on a project too. Mikhail as well. So I won't say I'm biased, but I do like to have the best people to work with, and I believe I have them. And I advise and been involved in blockchain. Well, discovered blockchain and technology from the smart contract side as opposed to the crypto investing side. And that was smart contracts around 2016, 17. And I thought there's some great use cases for that. And that's where I really focus on bringing what is a blockchain or a tech stack, software in a way, to real use cases, to enterprise. And it's about providing a solution to problems. And that's where I come from. So yeah, look, I just want to say thanks for some of the comments in there. Who's this? A LinkedIn user just says, "Am I the real one?" I am. Just to reassure you. I don't think AI does that to itself, right? So anyway, let's crack on with.
That sounds like something AI would say. So
that's true. Know. I'm not going to do something AI would do. So hello everyone again.
Well, it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't matter if I'm a bot or if I'm an AI. Look, what we're going to just so our audience knows. Please do put questions in the comments. The guys have some questions and some answers, I should say, to some questions that were for this. But this is really about interacting with you, the audience. If you've got any questions, please type them in the comments. They will pop up here, and we will get to them. If we can't get to all of them today, They will stay there in the comments, and the guys can come to those after we've stopped live streaming, and they can approach them later. But we'll do our best to get to them. So please just type them in there. This is all about being interactive and working with you and answering your questions. We have one already from Arnold. The guys can't see the questions, by the way. I will pop them up to them. Why don't we? Look, we had a backup and we had those ready questions. But guys, we've got one already. Should we have a look at it?
Go.
Let's do it. That's what it's about. So, to Mika. And it's Arnold who says, could you provide more details about the token economics of the project you mentioned earlier? Additionally, how can we determine if the token economics are sustainable? Or maybe we can make that a general question.
Maybe yes. So let's take it step by step. So yes, I mentioned AAA DAO, the zero interest lending protocol, and I designed the utility token for this particular project. And the, let's say, token utility is mainly the ability to pay back your loans automatically. So the mechanism is that the protocol generates fees, and all those fees are pulled together in a cashback pool, and then users who stake the utility token are able to take a part of those fees, but as cashback. So this is not a dividend, this is not passive income. You can only use those fees for repaying basically a credit balance on your loan, which basically means that only people who are actually users of the protocol get the benefit of it. And this is how we ensure that the let's say protocol is let's say not exploited, there is no value extraction, and that, let's say, everything, the economic value generated by the protocol stays with the community.
So I'm just going to highlight 2 points. Oh, sorry, you're still speaking, Mikhail.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I think the 2 key points there are that you are limiting value access to people who actually use the protocol. I think in a lot of unsustainable projects, we see the ability to take out value just because. We see a lot of these APY schemes that anybody can access just by holding the token, and that does nothing for the economy. And the other thing which was relevant in your design is that it's pre-funded. You are paying it out of fees that have already been collected. There is already value that has been accounted for in your system. So you're not paying out value that hasn't come in yet, which is the other incredibly widespread error that you see in these designs, because you give people the power to print money, and it's really easy to just push that button one more time and print some more. In one way or another, they'll call it different things, but it amounts to the same thing. So I think those are 2 key general pillars for sustainable design that are that you captured with that example.
Okay.
Well said. Well said.
So I think what I'd like to do here is, as I said, we had some questions that were set out. And I think this is quite a good one that we mentioned in before we joined. It was, let's just sort of make it a bit more high level in general. How do businesses benefit from tokenization, guys?
Yeah, this question came in because someone was asking just some really we've got a range of people here.
Yes.
From people who are looking at this who are saying, why do we care at all, to people who are like really into the details now. So I think how do businesses benefit from tokenization is also a catch-all for why do we even want to do this, right?
Exactly. I don't know. Mick answered at the beginning last one. So Roderick, why don't you start with this one?
Yeah, this is, I still struggle with summarizing this. I think the last time I tried it, I said, blockchain gives us a better way to transfer resources between each other and to conduct business activities. And how does it do that at a granular level? Well, it allows us to interact with each other directly without needing middlemen. So that means we don't have to pay fees to the middlemen. And then it also, the structure allows us to program it at a very low level. So we can predefine the actions and the agreements that we want to occur And because of the cryptographic stuff that's going on with the blockchain, we know that those rules will be observed once they are live. So that means that we can run a whole series of very complicated actions automatically, again, without human agency, and automatically and in a way that's highly repeatable and reliable. Now, so long as we've coded those instructions well and correctly, then we can rely on those instructions and run them. But those are the two core benefits. And once these things are in place, you can essentially open up your business processes and economic systems to lots of people you don't know, who may be in all parts of the world, and do business with them in a way that's sort of more seamless, that has less process overhead, less checking. And that's the vision for where we're going to end up. We're still nowhere near there. There's still all kinds of frictions around UX, dangers around identity that we still have to iron out. But the end goal is very promising, and that's why a lot of established institutions are making a move now to develop their own technologies and standards and products with this technology. I don't know. How would you refine that? It's not. I don't find it simple to summarize this.
Just for anyone who's coming in, the question is, how do businesses benefit from tokenization? And that was what. So Mikhail, sorry, because I think we've got some people.
Let me just say that. So let's just summarize that: lower costs, higher automation, more scalability, and faster, more efficient business processes. That's where it ends up.
Mr. Mikhail, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is great. This is great. So it's very funny because we talked about background in economics, and I remember my classes when we covered the theory of the firm and trying to understand why people organize themselves or enterprises as firms to begin with. And it's all about the transaction costs, right? So if you're an independent actor and you're transacting with other independent actors, but as long as the risk of this interaction is low, if you are interacting with known parties and if you're interacting with somebody that you've done business before. And this is why enterprises tend to grow, because it's safer to internalize all the processes than deal with a lot of independent parties. And what blockchain does is helping us creating tools that actually lower those transaction costs, because they're lowering risk of interactions. And let's say this is very, very high level of economic theory, but in very practical way, this is also something that I believe Roderick will appreciate from the project finance. I remember that let's say, since solar energy became feasible on a commercial scale, there were numerous attempts to create some sort of crowdfunding or crowd lending facilities to help bring capital into the renewable energy space. And they failed for two main reasons. Number one is that the admin cost of administering private investment of loans were very high. So it didn't make any sense. There was no advantage versus just going to a commercial bank to get the loan. And the second thing is there was no liquidity or secondary market for those instruments, which basically means that private individuals were left with an asset for the maturity of the whole contract, which in renewable energy can be, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, I mean, maybe 10. And I was personally involved in the tokenization project for renewable energy in sub-Saharan Africa, where what happened was because of the blockchain technology and because of introducing tokens that represent those solar loans, number one, the admin costs go, let's say, almost to zero, because the solar developer only interacts with a single staking contract that basically once every month or every quarter, they just transfer the stable coins that they're due. And then people who have tokens, they interact with the smart contract and they take whatever is due all to them. And you can have fractional ownership. You can have, a tiny fraction of a token. It still makes sense. And the second thing, what is possible is that if you have tokens that are easily transferable on chain, they can also be traded, which basically means in the box you have this opportunity of creating secondary market with liquidity, which now is a complete game changer, right? So this is why companies can use blockchain technology and tokenization. You have business cases that were completely impossible before this technology existed.
So just to try, you've told me about that example, and I think it's a really good one as well. Just to sort of like try and tie that into the core sort of end benefits that blockchain delivers. Before you would have to create all these contracts and ownership contracts to sell to everybody, and you would need like a bunch of lawyers involved, and it would be a lot to manage for every new right. Now everything's sort of like done by an automatic contract, so all of that overhead's gone. You post these tokens on exchanges, and before that was all, its own army of middlemen. That's gone. It's now automated. It's all done by smart contracts. So suddenly, it no longer becomes expensive to give people really small shares of ownership that are tradable. These were things that were prohibitively expensive before, and that blockchain makes cheaper. And the end economic result of that is that people who have smaller budgets can take part in financing solar infrastructure where they weren't able to before, and we're able to connect this popular interest in supporting green energy developments up with people who may not be these giant investors and may just want to put their money, and from the project's point of view, that lowers the cost of capital because now they have more investors available who will offer capital, so the cost of buying that capital goes down. So this is sort of like there are so many win-win-wins on all sides, and this is all being delivered because of the technology just cuts out all these middlemen and automates a lot of stuff. And that's how we see these end results coming in. So it's really hard to explain because it's so general purpose, and value sort of flows and effects go in so many directions here. But yeah, it's a great example, Mikhail.
I mean, we've got a question here that is kind of topical as well, especially with lots been happening, but especially this week, and it's relevant, I think, to maybe what you just said. But it's from Freddie. So, do you think the evolution, I think, or the compliance situation, I think he's saying, may limit these benefits that you're mentioning, such as lower fees and no middlemen, Roderick, as you were just saying, and what's your thoughts there? I know you're not compliance experts, but of course, maybe
it obviously will. But it will still be an improvement on what we have.
Yes.
That's it. And it will still be a material improvement on what we have. I'm pro-regulation. It's too easy to abuse this stuff. It really is. It's and regulation won't get it perfect. There'll be things that don't fit a few edge cases. Averages require compromises, but it's still better for everyone involved. So yes, there will still be some paperwork. Some things might not be fully on chain, but getting us to use this technology more broadly may be a first step towards, removing some of that red tape once we get more used to it. So yes is the short answer, but it's still a good thing.
Okay, Mikhail, any thoughts?
Look, we live in a world that is regulated.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we live in a civilized world, it means that it is regulated. So it's not the survival of the fittest. Mm-hmm. So of course we need regulations. And people forget that the internet, the internet hasn't really took off until it has been regulated. And Al Gore has something to do with it, right? He signed a bill that actually allowed the use of the internet for commercial use as well, right? And this opened up, let's say, the whole plethora of the Web 2 revolution that has been happening recently. So look, I think looking at, for example, the coming MiCA regulation and some other regulations in different jurisdictions, even the regulators are aware of the fact that there has to be a lot of leeway for experiments. And this is why even regulators introduce different, let's say value thresholds for projects. So if you're small enough, and this is sort of like a proof of concept implementation of something, well, go ahead. We're not gonna, penalize you, but if you grow and if you now become like a market standard, for example, of course you have to be regulated, because if you don't, I mean, look what happened to the.
Yeah, so there are a number of jurisdictions that are bringing in sandbox regimes, which
Nika is one of those.
allow for a special suspension of normal regulatory conditions, provided other conditions are met. So Europe, Singapore, I believe Hong Kong, the UK. It's nowhere to be seen in the US, alas. But this, I think, is a constructive approach. So saying, okay, we believe this is new and we're open-minded to trying new things out, as long as there's sort of like a border perimeter here. And in what I was reading about the European sandboxes, there would be like, okay, you're allowed to request to us to suspend any number of these regulations, provided that you explain to us how you are going to compensate for the safety deliverable that this measure was meant to create. So that's really interesting. That allows people to sort of say, okay, we know you're trying to do this to protect people for this, but we want to try this. And then they'll be, okay, let's see how it works. And I think that's a very constructive approach. Now, some people will say, oh, this is no good. It limits experimentation to the biggest, most established institutions. I don't know. I think that's better than nothing. And actually, the biggest institutions are probably going to innovate with the simplest, smallest things first, and build out from there. So even if they are the only ones who get access to a sandbox, that's still better than nothing. I think, sadly, a lot of retail crypto solutions blockchain solutions are really, really wild.
Yeah.
And it is very, very hard to they are.
They are. No, they are exactly.
I love them. I've been attracted to that punky spirit. There's no question. But we have to acknowledge that it is, it's too much risk for a lot of ordinary investors. And if we want to save the reputation of this industry, we have to accept going a little bit more slowly before we run away with ourselves like that.
Yeah, and look, I mean, just to kind of round up, because we're getting kind of a lot of questions, obviously because of what's happening about exchanges and regulators and things like this, which we're going to try and keep this on tokenomics at this stage, and maybe we can, we've touched on this because it was relevant, but I mean, my view just is I keep it kind of very simple, is that if you are handing responsibility to a third party, which effectively an exchange or anyone that's sort of taking responsibility from you, then it should be regulated too. Because you need to make sure that they're taking care of something, that you're giving them that care, that care of. If you're sticking to pure DeFi, it's up to you, right? I mean, if you want to start take the risks on you, but if you're handing that responsibility over, my view is yes, it should be regulated, because the risk is no longer with you; it's with the person you're having to trust. But then that's kind of like not decentralized. But that's another conversation, and that's another live stream we can do next time.
We're already 30 minutes in. Shall we start bringing in AI?
Would you like to? Yeah, I mean, let's do that. Okay, so
just so that it gives people, then we can turn over to questions. But at least
let's do it. Go on then.
Introduction around the subject.
Let's bring some in, because as you know, I've done some AI work before, not ChatGPT. Like this is how Roderick and I met. I mean, with my AI business that's with blockchain. And Roderick, the question we have is, why are AI and blockchain, this is a big one, such a good fit for each other?
Yeah, I think this is basically fundamental to understand. Blockchains are data. They're absolutely nothing more and nothing less than data. And if the reason why I think this is such a momentous event, that AI is developing and blockchain are developing at the same time, is that if you consider how impressed we've been with what we've been able to achieve by letting a certain kind of AI model roam the internet and learn stuff with ChatGPT, consider that what we're doing with blockchains is that we're making economic data visible, digitally readable by machines. So in the same way that the internet gave machines a lens on a certain parts of our lives, the kind of information we like to share and exchange between each other, blockchains will be giving machines a lens on our economic activity. And, I'm sure some people are absolutely terrified at that idea, and some people are like, yes, machine overlords, take us now.
Yeah, go. Let's come on.
But I'm personally optimistic, and I think it's very exciting because I believe human capacities are limited, and we do such a terrible job of managing our own economies because we don't know any better. And I personally believe that putting that to machine learning and guidance can help improve the way we manage ourselves. And this goes beyond how much we spend here and there. This goes into how we manage our material resources in the economy, how much carbon is being generated by all of these things that we do, what happens to the metal in the car once it ends up in the scrap heap. It goes in all kinds of directions that I feel very optimistic about. But before the machines can learn, we have to make it visible to them. So understanding that blockchains are just data and that they encode economic data is the key to understanding why there is complementarity between these two technologies.
So open data sets as opposed to siloed data sets.
Okay, I can go one here. Like there's this thing called federated machine learning.
Yes.
Where you can get a machine learning algorithm to learn on your private data set, something that you can only see.
Yes.
And then using blockchain technology, you can still keep that data private, but somehow a higher order machine learning algorithm manages to learn what the other machine learning algorithms did and manages to learn from them without revealing that private data set.
Got it.
So this is federated machine learning, and it's one of the ideas that's being developed in conjunction with blockchain technology.
I have to add that on a more, not quite on that advanced level, but this is what, and this is, I don't want to plug this, we did at Guardians at blockchain, gbc.ai, about detecting scams. And it was that data that was available, blockchain data that was available, and the smart contracts that often are open as well and open source, that enabled us to create data sets to create those algorithms that can help spot potential scams and scam tokens. So that's kind of like how we approach security with Wallet Guardian, which Roderick knows very well because he's an advisor of gbc.ai. Mikhail, any thoughts, AI and blockchain?
Sure, plenty. So I have one very cool specific example how, let's say, part of the blockchain stuff and AI can work together is in the area of establishing consensus. So let's say you have a set of data inputs, and now you have different models that analyze those data, but now you have to let's say, establish some sort of output as the end of this whole process. And it's also something I've been personally involved working with one of the projects. These guys are developing consensus algorithms for AI that, for example, determines fire hazards in buildings, where you have a building that has, let's say, 10,000 different IoT sensors, and if something is happening, something's triggered in those sensors, how you determine whether you're going to trigger a fire alarm or not. Triggering a fire alarm can potentially save a lot of people, but can potentially also disrupt, work and potentially a lot of value being produced, right? But triggering this alarm, you basically, somebody's life can be in danger. Right? So this idea of using different independent nodes with different reputation and different voting power, voting on an outcome of a process, and then collectively agreeing on a decision. I think it's a fascinating one. And let's say another specific example is something that I've been recently thinking about in the context of AI-generated content, different AI-generated content. You can have, blog posts that are AI-generated and videos, photos, that soon, I mean, you can see that soon they are going to be as real as it gets, that indistinguishable for human eye. So how do we know which news is fake news? Well, there is this cool little feature called, a cryptographic signature that is well adopted in the blockchain space. And we might as well have a mechanism or a protocol that digitally signs every piece of content that is being produced and published on the internet. And you can have a situation where you can have humans that attest that this piece of content was generated by a human, for example, themselves or somebody. And you can also have machine algorithms that are digitally signing a piece of content that they've created, so everybody knows it's AI generated. And then you're going to have this sort of gray space in between that hasn't been signed, right, or hasn't been validated in a provable way yet. And then you're gonna be able to very quickly, sift and sort and react let's say, in adequate manner depending on what you're expecting. Because sometimes, for some low volume transactions or interaction, it doesn't really matter who was the source of the content. And sometimes you definitely need to have a cryptographic proof that a photo was taken by or a video taken by a real person in the real world. And examples, there is a company trying to crack it, are body cams of police officers.
Right. Actually, it reminded me of something. I was at Davos in January for the blockchain business and set up, and it was Hedera House, and somebody's got up, and I have to apologise if they're listening. If anyone's interested, I'll dig it out. I can't remember the name of the project now, but they were saying that they had taken, there were lots of photos being taken at a war site, like in Ukraine, basically. And they said, well, those were then being logged into the blockchain with the time and the date. Actually, the analogy they used was an evidence bag, like a plastic evidence bag, where you see, maybe you're a police officer, you know this, or you see it in the films, right? Where you write the details, the time, the place, and you log it and everything else. Well, they're saying that's effectively what they were doing with the blockchain, and then later that can be used for whatever reason, whether it goes to a criminal court or something else, right? So you remind me of that. It was something that I saw when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
this provenance thing is very broad as well. I mean, it's even sort of like, how do you prove that this this rare whiskey really came from where they said it did and stuff?
Yeah.
No, it's being applied. Or in carbon credits, like, how do we know that this project really did offset this much carbon? So this idea of authentication is a very broad concern, and we're seeing it apply to various kinds of applications in this space.
Now this got me thinking. I was going to bring, and I'm going to go on to another one of the questions, because it's related to one of the ideas, the themes we had from the slide, and there's actually a question here that's tied into this. Maybe I'll start with that, but I was going to say, how would you bring a tokenomics? Okay, here's it. Carbon credits, or what do you say, or traceability. Could you bring some kind of incentive tokenization into that? Yeah, I guess you can, but I mean, because I'm thinking like, okay, a blockchain for mutability, but what about actually creating a project? What about some of these carbon credits and we're seeing? There's a lot of that popping up now.
Well, some of the carbon credits are, it's been a while since I've looked at these systems, but essentially these credits and incentives tend to cycle in quite siloed sorts of parties. The fact, for example, by design, the European carbon trading scheme excluded loads of industries and basically focused it on power or a few things. So that by design was siloed in certain industries. If it isn't by design, that means that you can't include the entire economic chain in the incentive structure. Whereas if these things are fully tradable between all agents, then that expands the scope for the incentives to move further down, and maybe even offer some flexibility over how those incentives are expressed and managed between particular companies and their consumer bases. So that's at a really high level. But actually, what's really interesting about carbon tokenization and any real world tokenization is that there's a one-to-one relationship between some physical stuff and something you are putting on the blockchain. And I think that introduces a lot of discipline into the basic design that I think is really necessary, because a lot of people have been leaning into, we can print and destroy tokens here and there, and that creates a lot of confusion. If we have to do something quite boring and say that for every ton of carbon we have 1 million tokens, that introduces a lot of discipline that I think gets us to design a little more carefully, and then maybe add pretty modest sort of incentive layers on top of that don't just print money in order to create an incentive and that wreck the entire system in the process.
Yes, and maybe I can add that we can design any incentive structure, but we need to keep in mind that at the end of the day, somebody has to pay the bill. So there has to be somebody who is paying for this whole system that we're designing.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that there can be a voluntarily, let's say, opted-in system for capturing carbon credits or renewable energy that is global and that is ultimately supported by consumers who are willing to pay a premium on products that are verifiably sustainable, whatever this is going to mean. And if we can, but this is let's say, fundamental question. It's true that there is sufficient market demand for people who are willing to pay extra for getting this information. And if it is in fact true, then we can have a elaborate system with we're going to tokenize various assets. We're going to trace them and track them through the whole of the supply chain. And then depending on the, let's say, value added of each of the contributor of the supply chain, then we distribute those incentives that are coming from consumers. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now, we also spoke about tokenization templates and can they work? So I think we're going to dial this back a bit into, and let's go a bit more high level. Now, we have a question actually from Zeshan. Sorry, Zeshan. Now, without going into great detail, I mean, but effectively, this kind of ties into that question. Does a template work? I mean, this is what he's. Can you see this, guys? This is he has a gaming. I'm looking at gaming project. A blockchain game, and maybe again, let's maybe could be a bit more general about templates, but maybe with this as a lead. What about templates? I mean, do we have? I think it's very, in my mind, it's very specific to the project and the protocol and the service. Would you agree, or can we just go with the templates?
Michael, I'm always answering.
Roger is going to get emotive about this one.
Yeah, okay, so go ahead.
No, I said, please, go ahead.
Come on, Michael, you kick off this one.
So I think templates are necessary, and the fact that we don't have templates for sustainable tokenomics only means that we are very early in the game, because the same way, like, we watch very, very old documentaries, like black and white footage of people building the first flying machines. I mean, you look at this stuff and it's ridiculous, right? Because now we understand how a plane works, and we know how you build a plane. And there were numerous attempts that look completely ridiculous, and they all failed. But I mean, this is the learning by natural selection. And I think this is what's also happening in our space right now, where people are, let's say, trying different stuff. I wouldn't say throwing spaghetti at the wall, but it kind of looks like that. And it's the survival of the fittest. Those models that survive and actually make sense, they can be generalized and turned into templates. And, even the model of proof of stake in general, where you have a network of decentralized nodes and earn rewards, and then you also have some sort of economic buy into the game that can be slashed, that you can potentially use. I think it's a great template. It has so many wonderful applications, and even in the business world, where you want to onboard a group of either suppliers or mainly suppliers, but also clients into a marketplace at a very, very low cost. I mean, this works brilliantly. Let's say all the staking and slashing mechanism, and then having some sort of reward that is connected to performing actual work that is valuable for the network. That's a great template. Right? So I hope we're going to see more and more of this. And it's like, we a business model for a SaaS company, like business model canvas for a SaaS company. Everybody understands this, and it wasn't that clear 20 years ago. So, okay, Roderick, over to you. What do you?
Yeah, I think we are going to make use of templates, but actually, we need to templatize at a lower level, right? We need to define standards around some of the lower level components that make up our economies first. I don't think we've gotten in there. If I tell you, if we think of basic financial instruments, we know what a bond is or a loan is, and we know what equity is. I mean, there are always details in the terms, but we know what the basic outlines of those are, and those two instruments have been standardized to a degree that we can work with them and plan things out in considerable detail before we get to the sort of fine script. And I don't think that our design of economies at the economy level really knows. We don't know what parts we're working with yet. So I think we've actually got a way to go before we can come up with general economic templates. To speak to Zashan's question here, this issue is not, how you slice up the pie chart is not enough information to determine whether these tokens are going to be used, are going to result in a sustainable economy, right? We don't know how you're generating your revenue. We don't know how you're spending all of these tokens. We don't know what market makers you have on board, what treasury management principles. We don't know. There's so much stuff that goes into determining whether this is going to be a sustainable economy. Actually, the surprising thing is that how you divide up the pie chart doesn't actually matter all that much. There aren't strong economic principles to guide that. That actually becomes guided by market expectations. And the way I approach these solutions is to look at what's going on in the market and make sure that investors are seeing something that looks like what they've seen before and what they're seeing else there. But actually, in economic terms, these are not sufficient conditions to create sustainability in the token economy. There's so much more that needs to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If you want to address these particular questions, I would say that, yeah, absolutely. The most important thing for me is defining the actual utility on organic demand for the token. So basically, how it's created. And this, pie chart and slicing and dicing, it's only about bargaining power of different stakeholders, really.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I'm popping this question up, guys, because again, it's a use case. I mean, he's asking about play to earn. So, I mean, what are your thoughts here?
You go, Mikhail.
So, as I mentioned a while ago, we can have any incentive. At the end of the day, somebody has to pay the bill. So if my whole business value proposition is that I'm raising demand for my product, then the question is like, why do I even come up with this product? Maybe the whole business is not sustainable. And this is not a token economic specific questions, because if you think about the company like WeWork, right? It's a case in point. You had a business that were spending more dollars on customer acquisition than this particular customer would bring to the business throughout their whole lifetime. It's not sustainable. So if you have a game that requires people to, let's say, it requires you to pay people for playing this game, well, maybe this game is not so fun to play. Because building an ecosystem, at some point, there has to be somebody who's bringing external value to this whole setup. If you don't, then you can stop right there. It's never going to be sustainable. But say on the other hand, it is absolutely possible to design a sustainable token economics for a Web3 game. Absolutely, there are ways of doing it. So I'm going to shut up. Let you guys.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, if you're playing a game, you want to enjoy the game, right? You're not playing it because it's a blockchain game. So, it's like there's a lot of instances of various worlds and games that I know of that don't use blockchain. They're hugely popular. For sure, you could probably find some great tokenomic models to bake into those because they've already got the users enjoying it and there's some value to extract. But it's kind of the wrong way around, isn't it? There's what we've seen in the last, 2 or 3 years is, hey, blockchain's really cool. A lot of investors pumping money into it. Let's build a game that's using blockchain. The game actually isn't as good as pretty much anything else out there. It's probably worse. And then they wonder why no one's using it. And it's like, well, because it's a tech stack. Build a great, enjoyable, compelling game that people want to use, and then put some blockchain in the back end if it works in that use case. Do you agree, Roderick?
Yeah, I think the people who developed some of these runaway games did not have that sort of game development background. I think so. Like, I love the video game space because as a nerd, like, I think it offers some of the richest possibilities for economic design, where you're like you just have these fantastic situations where you can really build entire economic scenarios, and you have people who are willing and interested in playing in those games, and you can potentially learn a lot. Now, where we come into some trouble is on the proposal of a Web3 game, of a GameFi game, which says we're going to open this economy so that value can come out as well as go into the economy. Now, when you do that, you attract a different base of player, right?
Yeah.
So to some extent, this problem becomes unstable because the more successful you become at keeping value in the game, the more attractive that honeypot becomes to attract people who want to steal the honeypot.
Exactly.
So the only way I see this working is if open, value going out is highly restricted, which dampens, in some sense, fundamentally dampens the initial appeal of the GameFi proposition, or we end up in a game economy where there's so many open, successful game economies that sort of speculative, extractive pressure is sort of more diffuse and sort of like has more places to go, and you can have sort of like a network of more open economies. So I think it's a really interesting space. I take an interest in what's going on there, but at the same time, I think it's trying to fly before it can walk. And we have to focus on the traditional game experience and keep a lot of controls in place in order to make sure it's not attractive to extractors who kill the whole thing.
Thanks. Just looking here, on the hour we've got 7 minutes. We are able to overrun, but I'm just keeping that in mind. If you are, but we've got another AI. Where has it gone? There was another AI question going back here. Yeah, machine learning. Let's have a look at this.
Oh, this is above my pay grade. No, I mean, like the when you get down to this true stuff of consensus mechanisms, you need like PhD level information to really give an accurate and precise answer to these kind of things. Why would I kind of, from what I know, I don't really see how these parts add up. I don't know why we're bringing these things together.
Yeah. That's fine. We can. I mean, yeah, we can get a I know you're keen on AI, Roderick, but I thought I'd just give you a quick test. I thought we'd test your, as you say, your pay grade.
I'm not going to BS my way out of anything.
No,
If
well,
I
that's
don't know
why
it, I don't
that's
know
why
it.
you're here. That's why you're both here, and that's why I'm here, because we hate BS, and there's a lot of it on LinkedIn. So let's not contribute to it anymore. Right.
Not to the question. Talking about my skills and understanding.
No, oh, no.
I don't
Let's
know
not.
anything about proof of work. This
No,
kind
you
of
don't know.
new
It's fine. This
technology.
is
So I'm not going to be able to express.
that's the way we roll here. That's the way we roll. We don't try and baffle with bullshit and with the answers, not the questions we're talking about here. Mikhail, you're not an AI. Do you want to pass on that one? Have you got a view?
Well, look, my comment on this is going to be the following. Yes, it is possible to build something like this, but my question would be, I mean, who would do it and for what purpose?
Right.
Because if you are in the AI business and you have a very specific needs, you want to train your model. So the question is like, okay, you need to pay somebody for computational power to train this model. So if we're going to outsource it to independent node, is it going to be cheaper? Because if it's not going to be cheaper, then everybody will rent it from Amazon, right? Or other cloud provider. And then you have this added layer of complexity of, okay, you're going to have nodes that going to do this machine learning stuff, and they're going to mint blocks and receive block rewards. Well, then the blockchain for that. Maybe you just need a stable coin to pay for your computational power, and that's it, right? You don't need the blockchain for it. You don't need a proof of use for sort of protocol.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what's thrown me here is the proof of useful work protocol bit. If based on what you guys were just saying, if we're talking about a marketplace for where data and computational machine learning power is sort of like bought and sold, absolutely, that sort of stuff is being developed. So we're talking.
Yes.
So there are marketplaces for cloud infrastructure, for computing infrastructure. There are Ocean Protocol is trying to create an economy around data that can be, and more useful data earns a rent based on the amount of times it's used. So there are, if the question's really oriented around, how do we create a market economy that incentivizes and rewards computational power and machine learning. And then, DeSci, decentralized science, is trying to do interesting things where, the fruits of machine learning models can be sort of traced back. Again, we're talking about all this traceability, right? So a model that was created out of a set of research papers, can drive value back to the creators of those research papers. There's a lot of interest and thought going behind creating these marketplaces that can leverage the value of all this data that's sitting around out there.
Okay, guys, look, we are closing in on 60 minutes. There's quite a nice question here, I think, and it kind of it's almost like a little bit from the intro, but this is from, well, I've lost it, from Andrew, and he says, why are you personally investing your time and resources into blockchain technology? I think it's a great one to finish on, right? What is your driver? Is it freedom, stability, pure economics, for example? And what do you see, perhaps, which others, including he, Andrew, can't see yet, at least? Or maybe he can after this last 60 minutes. I think it's quite a nice closer.
Yeah.
I know you.
It's a great closer. Yeah. Okay, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Come on then.
Okay. So I'm an economics nerd. I love economics. I loved in college when I got to learn it, and I'm also a very practical person, and this is why I ended up in project finance, because I had this sort of feeling that I'm doing something, let's say modeling something, creating some small but still an economy that helps the world somehow. Like we were creating something, and I notice that there is a similar possibility with blockchain, where we can create socio-economic incentive structures that will guide human behavior towards something better. And I mean, this is very, very, let's say, esoteric and high level, but to make it a bit more concrete and specific. So I've seen a project, I'm also involved in a project that shows people how you can have a lending protocol that doesn't charge any recurring interest, which is huge, in terms of let's say, sovereign finance, and in terms of pulling people out of poverty potentially. Um, I've also seen projects that can enable mass scale financing for renewable energy that was not possible before. There are ways of creating, local currencies for, municipalities or villages or specific industries that they can have their own sustainable economy around those currencies that is completely the federal or central government. Right? This is also a fascinating subject for me. Loyalty reward space as well. I think we have a really, really good chance at cracking loyalty rewards on the blockchain soon. I'm involved in one of those projects, and I really think that this can be a way out of this incredible vicious cycle of paid advertising and paid marketing, and everybody competing for our attention and stealing our data. There is the consumer, there is a brand, and these can be connected in a way without any intermediary that is trying to steal out both of them. So I mean, this is why I'm in this space, because I love economics and I see a transformational potential of this technology. So over to you guys.
Rodrigo, as I first knew you, before you became Roderick.
I put my face and my hands there because my response to this question does depend on which day you wake me up, which side of the bed I've gotten out of.
Give us today's response.
I'm an independent advisor, so I'm doing this by myself, and some days I'm like, oh my God, this is my first bear market. I only got into the space when everything was super hot in 21.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this real? Am I going to have a future in this? What's going on? But then the days that I do get animated by this stuff, I think your comment, Mikhail, about being an economics nerd is absolutely pertinent. I think you're a nerd as well. We bonded over that on one of our early phone calls.
Yeah.
And what being a nerd, it gives you this understanding of some incredible general purpose benefits that are just they're always saying, give us an example, and you're like struggling because you understand the deep principle, but you don't see it implemented or expressed successfully, but it's there.
Yeah.
And what's been giving me a lot of encouragement is that I'm seeing JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, EY, the Monetary Authority of Hong Kong, the European Investment Bank, all of these people who are not idiots, who are not moon boys. They're talking about the technology the way we've been talking about it today, and they are putting capital and they're building stuff behind it, and they see the same things that all of us see here, and that gives me reassurance. Okay, I'm not just in cloud cuckoo land here. This is real, and it's happening, and concrete examples as well. I heard of companies, loans that are being US dollar loans that are being accessed by small and medium-sized companies in sub-Saharan Africa. You tell me what part of our conventional financial infrastructure provides that kind of service to people. Now, this is entirely facilitated by blockchain. Now, we're in this funny situation where blockchain was birthed by this CryptoPunk aspiration, and that had some validity, and in the heat of the 2008 financial crisis, and it also enables all of these adverse and nefarious activities. So we have this very confused proposition. We've been saturated with this idea of this technology being a bad thing. We see all the terrible headlines, and it's really difficult for people to wrap their heads around how this can be both terrible and amazing at the same time. But that goes back to the incredible general purpose nature of this technology, which allows it to fan out into terrible use cases and use cases that are amazing. But I think we are beginning to see the tide change, just in virtue of the kind of players that are getting involved now, that are there joining the conversation and adding capital and expertise to these efforts. So that's what gives me reassurance, and then I'm excited to be part of this big change, and hope to see a better world on the other side of it.
Yeah, from my side, it's pretty much echoes what you both said, but certainly, Roderick, I'm very excited. I mean, I've always been an early adopter. You say I'm a geek. You knew that. We both geeked out when we first met. The first meeting we had to discuss things. And Mika, I think you know that too. We can go off on one as well. But certainly being early with this new technology, which I think is, I don't like the analogy, but I think, I remember when I first did use dial-up, and I remember when I first did access a static web page. I think it's like when, and the excitement there. I remember the first SMS I sent to someone and nobody knew what it was. And they're like, what is this? They didn't know. I love being on that first level. And I genuinely believe everything you both said about this technology and what it's going to be, what it's starting to do, and the tech stack it is extremely exciting. And just to echo again what you're saying about, industry and enterprise, Roderick, as you and maybe some other people will know, because I do put a lot of posts on LinkedIn, I get around a lot of blockchain conferences. And these are very much, since the last year, full of enterprise. I mean, in blue chip enterprises in all sorts of industry, not just the financial and the banking industry that Roderick mentioned, everything from supply chain to agricultural to, I mean, you name it. I saw Sony walking around the other day. I've seen, I saw Paris blockchain. I bumped a guy like Paris Saint-Germain football team with a guy representing them. Okay, I don't know if it's NFT, but I mean, it's just a few. I mean, I can't actually list them because I see so many, and I talk to these people. They are all looking at how they can use blockchain technology to enhance their business processes and also use it for community and then incentives and all the things that Mikhail touched on. So look, we're at 1 minute 7. There's a lot of guys. You'll see when we stop this broadcast. There's still a lot of questions, and there's some questions in the comments. Maybe you can have a look at that. It'd be great if you can have a look, and maybe you can answer some of those. If anyone has any more questions or wants to contact us, of course this is LinkedIn. You can access and direct message us quite easily. You can look at our profiles. You can do a number of things, which is what we quite like about the B2B side of LinkedIn. I think we all just want to thank you for being here. And thank you both guys for joining this evening.
Yeah, great questions from the audience. Really enjoyable.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think the questions are the testimony to the fact that the industry is maturing, and we are attracting more and more, quality projects, quality, because I mean, these were pretty advanced questions, and I really enjoyed answering them. So that was great.
Okay. Well, look, thanks. Yeah. Well, I hope if it's wherever you are in the world, either have a nice breakfast, good lunch, nice dinner, or a good sleep. We'll think. Look, if anyone would like to mention, please come onto my LinkedIn if you or make a comment to this about what you'd like to see discussed at the next live stream. We have done Mika, the regulation, 2 or 3 months ago with fantastic experts. You can find that by searching my posts on LinkedIn. There was also one with Mikhail before with tokenomics, but that was such in demand. We brought on Roderick too and done another one. I'm open to suggestions. I want to hear what you'd like to know more about, and as I say, bring you some real experts from a crowd of non-experts or non-expert experts that LinkedIn is attracting as well. So thanks again, everyone, and we really appreciate you interacting, and thanks for great questions.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.